Hello there, you're welcome to yet another history class. Today we'll be considering the Berlin Treaty. Berlin is the capital city of Germany. Treaty means a written agreement between people or groups of people. Berlin Treaty refers to the written agreement which was made in Berlin. Let's go deep into the Berlin Treaty Conference of 1884 to 1885 in the 19th century. The Berlin Conference or meeting started from November 15, 1884 to February 26, 1885. The Berlin Conference was also referred to as Congo Conference or West African Berlin Conference. The conference was attended by 14 European countries, which are Great Britain, Austria-Hungary, Belgium, Denmark, France, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, Portugal, Russia, Spain, Sweden, Norway, and Turkey. The conference was a meeting among European nations to decide and come out with rules on how they would divide African territories for colonization. Before the conference, there was struggle and rivalry among European countries concerning the territories that each of them would colonize. The conference was organized in order to settle the rivalry among European nations and divide African territories peacefully for easy colonization. The Berlin Conference was organized by Otto von Bismarck. Otto von Bismarck, the first Chancellor of Germany. The written agreement reached at the Berlin Conference was referred to as Berlin Treaty. So the written agreement that was reached at the Berlin Conference was referred to as the Berlin Treaty. Up next is the reasons for the Berlin Treaty. A couple of reasons are hereby highlighted. The Berlin Treaty, that's the written agreement, was made for the following reasons. 1. To peacefully divide Africa for colonization. Africa felt like a piece of cake that would be divided or devoured by the Europeans. So to peacefully divide Africa for colonization. The opposite of peace is war. So before they could actually have peace, they were in a state of chaos over Africa, much more like the scrambling for Africa. The treaty was to assist European countries to peacefully allocate or divide African territories for colonization. So it was to peacefully divide Africa for colonization, allocating and dividing African territories. 2. To prevent rivalry and confrontations. Different European nations struggled for territories to colonize in Africa. This resulted in rivalry and conflict among them. For instance, in Nigeria, there was rivalry between the British and French firms. Also, there was rivalry between British and German firms in Togo. At times, these rivalries ended up in violence and military confrontation, which obviously would lead to loss of lives among European nations. The treaty was meant to prevent rivalry, confrontations, and conflicts among European nations. Number 3, for official recognition of colonized territories. The Berlin Treaty was meant to officially recognize African territories that were colonized by each European nation, much more like putting a label on the different countries who owns what. That is to recognize the European country that colonized a particular African territory. For instance, the treaty allocated Nigeria to Britain. Now you get the point. As a result of the treaty, no European nation could struggle with Britain on the colonization of Nigeria. Number 4, to regulate European trading activities in Africa. Before the treaty was made, there was competition among European companies on where and who to trade. Number 5, to aid effective occupation of African territories. The conference was called to challenge European powers to put in place administrative control that was sufficient enough to prevent other powers from showing interest in the territories. Up next is the features of the Berlin Treaty. Number 1, principle of effective occupation. Now, the principle states that the occupation of any African territory by any European nation would only be recognized if the European nation had effective control over the area. Number 2, principle of notification for acquiring new African territory. The principle of notification was adopted for fresh possession of any African territory. Number 3, free access to trade and navigation along the Niger and Congo rivers. The Niger and Congo rivers. Number 4, international prohibition of slave trade. Number 5, protection of natives, missionaries, and travelers. With that, we've come to the end of yet another class. Your assignment is number 1, what is the Berlin Treaty? And number 2, describe the Berlin Conference of 1884 to 1885. Until we meet again next time, I remain Mr. Ilori. Thanks for listening.